this community forum about traffic safety on Pulaski. Just a little bit of housekeeping first. So we have a wonderful panel here that can speak to traffic safety from a few different perspectives. We have Alex Perez from the Active Transportation Alliance. They are a citywide advocacy group that advocates for walking, biking, and better transit, so people don't have to take their cars for every single trip. They also do the Bike the Drive event annually, if you've ever done that. We have Alderwoman Halo Gutierrez from the 14th Ward joining us as well. Curie is part of the 14th Ward, and a big stretch of Pulaski that we're focused on for this effort is also in the 14th Ward, north of 51st Street all the way to I-55. And then at the end, we also have Jacob from the Chicago Department of Transportation. And CDOT has joined us on a lot of the traffic safety initiatives we've done over the last year. We walked the length of Pulaski, and they joined us on every single one of those walks, all 8 of them. Walked from 40th Street to 71st with us, and they've also been part of the community forums that the Alderwoman has put together, that the Alderman of the 23rd Ward has put together. So they've been active on Pulaski for the last year or so. Okay. I also want to, of course, thank Curie for hosting us. We've done forums here before. It's a wonderful institution. It's a real gem on the Southwest Side broadly, and in Archer specifically, of course. I also want to mention that this forum is being live streamed. So our cameras are over there. Hello to everybody on the internet. So we will have an audience Q&A portion. And if you ask a question, then you will at least be heard on the live stream. So FYI about that. If you are interested in Spanish translation, one of our collective partners, Maria, is right over here and is available to do Spanish translation. So if that is something that you're interested in, I would ask that you gravitate towards Maria over in this section at the bottom right, my right, your left, and she will be happy to provide that. And just as a note for all of us, and for myself mostly, that we should talk slow to accommodate any translation that needs to happen. Okay, so with that, the run of show for tonight is we are going to do a presentation about some of what we've learned over the past 6 months, doing traffic safety survey and other initiatives along Pulaski, and then we are going to have some questions for our panelists. And then we are going to get into audience Q&A. So they'll have plenty of time for you to ask your questions, offer your ideas, and we want to hear all of that. Someone will be walking around with the mic when we get to that portion. Okay. I also want to announce real quickly that we have guests today in the audience. We have somebody from IDOT, the Illinois Department of Transportation, who's joined us as well. And we have somebody from the CTA. And we feel like public transit, robust public transit, is a big part of making Pulaski safer. Okay. So I'm going to stand for this so I can see what's going on. So apologies if you see the back of my head. But we're here to talk about how to make Pulaski roads safer. And why are we doing that? Well, we're doing that sadly because too many of our neighbors have been killed in crashes along Pulaski. Earlier this year in February, our neighbor Jie Quan Shu was killed in a crash near 43rd in Pulaski, just crossing the street on foot. A few months later, on Easter night, our neighbor Charlie Mills was killed in West Lawn near 64th in Pulaski, also just crossing the street on foot. Something we should all be able to do. A lot of people in the community were outraged by this, were saddened by this, were furious at this, and rightfully so. Not just because these are tragic incidences in and of themselves, but because we know they're indicative of a larger problem, right? We know that crashes happen all the time on Pulaski in very high volume. And we see that we looked at city data since the beginning of 2020, and we saw that there have been more than 4,000, more than 4,200 crashes on South Pulaski since the start of 2020, so less than 5 years. And we're looking at the stretch between 40th Street, the I-55 bridge, and 71st Street, the Belt Railway Bridge. So just on this 30-plus block stretch, in less than 5 years, we've had more than 4,000 crashes. Those crashes have serious implications. Obviously, they can be fatal. People can be killed in these crashes. But even when people are not killed, a lot of people are injured. We've had over 900 injuries as a result of these crashes. And the city data tells us that 80 of those are what they call incapacitating injuries. So people getting hurt, and sometimes people getting seriously hurt. This could be pedestrians on foot. This could be people in their cars. There's also a big financial implication to this volume of crashes. So 2/3 of these 4,000 plus crashes resulted in more than $1,500 worth of property damage. Damage to cars, damage to buildings, and I believe that's not even counting potential medical bills, which we know can be extraordinarily expensive. If you think about, do you have $1,500 lying around? Do you have $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 lying around? I do not. Most people do not. But in 2,800 of these 4,200 plus crashes, that's what people have had to come out of their pocket for. Also increased insurance premiums, lots of financial implications. We know that Pulaski was built for cars, right? It's an incredibly wide street. That's why we have so many auto parts stores, parking lots, strip malls. I think a lot of people in the community, what they've been telling us, and what I know from living here, is that we feel compelled to drive everywhere, often for safety reasons. We don't want to go out and walk, even if it's a couple of blocks walk, because we feel like it's not safe crossing Pulaski, it's not safe being near Pulaski. There are 5 retail auto parts stores on this 30-plus block stretch. So there's obviously demand, right? And there's multiple car dealers, there's multiple mechanics. So this is the business imprint we have because we have built Pulaski for cars. Okay. This is not a problem that's confined to Chicago, to no surprise. We see that these are pedestrian deaths on our roads across the United States. And for 20 some odd years, starting in the early 1990s, they were going in the right direction. They were going down. And then in the late 2000s, they started going up again. And that 6,500 number that you see is not even the worst of it. The most recent year we have data for says that there were more than 7,500 deaths on our roads in 2022. And that's a 40-year high. So obviously we continue to be heading in the wrong direction. And you might ask yourself, well, what happened in the late 2010s that caused us to reverse course? Well, the iPhone came out in the late 2010s. That's not the only reason, but we have a lot of distracted driving now. Also, cars are bigger. It's harder to see pedestrians for drivers who are in larger vehicles. So there are lots of factors, some of which are outside of our control. But there's a lot that is within our control. So these high-profile traffic deaths, how did the community respond? Well, we've done a lot in the last 6 months since the first crash in February, the first high-profile crash in February. Alderwoman Gutierrez has held 2 community meetings, one in the spring, one just last week, to talk about traffic safety on Pulaski, to gather community feedback, to bring together people from the city, from CDOT, from the police department, from the Department of Planning and Development. Alderman Tavares in the 23rd Ward has been engaged on this. There was a letter from every single elected official in the area to the Illinois Department of Transportation earlier in the year demanding action on pedestrian safety, really prioritizing pedestrian safety on Pulaski. And CDOT has recently announced some safety improvements that they're looking to put in place on Pulaski. Some have gone in already. There'll be more going in place this fall. And Jake, I know will have more to say about that in just a few minutes. The Southwest Collective is also active, responding to traffic safety on Pulaski. So we worked with our friends at Active Trans to put together an online survey. Our online audience is almost exclusively people who live on the Southwest side. So we put together an online survey that asked people, what are your biggest safety concerns about this stretch of Pulaski? What are places that you would like to be able to walk to? What are places that you feel particularly unsafe around? And we asked people for those specifics. We also did the series of walks that I mentioned earlier. We did 8 We'll get to the next slide. So what did the survey tell us? Well, we had almost 500 people fill out the online survey. We had more than 50 people join us for our in-person walks. And the biggest takeaway is that speeding is the #1 safety concern of people in the community by far. 96% of respondents said speeding is a big problem on Pulaski. Additional problems that people identified were a high volume of truck traffic, particularly semis, but also other large vehicles, and that there's limited time to cross the street, especially if you're going east-west along Pulaski. What we also saw in the course of our walks was that there is, it happens frequently that people will drive through the median or drive through the parking lane to try to cut in front of traffic. There is, or was at the time of the walks, precisely one pedestrian refuge island on the stretch of Pulaski at 60th Street. And aside from that, Pulaski was smooth sailing in the middle of the road. So it's no wonder that oftentimes it's a magnet for people who want to do drag racing overnight, do donuts overnight. They have free reign and nothing really stopping them in the middle. Also, we know that there are stretches, especially close to the Belt Railway Bridge and close to I-55, where there is a parking lane, but it's mostly unoccupied. And people speed through that all the time. And when they speed through it, they're coming dangerously close to the sidewalk. And I think you've all seen damage, and I think, if you're like me, you see damage, and you've been thankful that you weren't there at that precise moment. We can do the next slide. Okay. We also asked people to identify problem intersections, right? What are the areas of Pulaski that they'd like to receive extra special attention? So 47th and Pulaski was an area of concern. It has a lot of truck traffic going east to the J.B. Hunt intermodal facility, going west to the industrial yard, and that can wreak havoc. Archer and Pulaski was a problem area, an area of concern. We get a lot of foot traffic with students coming in and out of Curie High School by the thousands every day. And it's also close to the Orange Line, which obviously draws a lot of people from the broader Southwest side. And we were also told that 63rd and Pulaski is an area of concern close to another public high school, Hubbard, and 63rd Street is an extremely busy commercial corridor, so there is a high volume of traffic through that. So something else that people told us from the survey and from our walks is that we don't really want to use our cars for every single little trip. If we were able to walk, if we were able to bike, if we were able to ride public transportation on short trips, especially through the neighborhood, a lot of people who live in the community want to be able to do that. And we're asking questions like, can we walk to school? Can we walk to go shopping, get groceries? Can we walk to the Orange Line station? These are destinations that a lot of people drive to, even if they live close, and safety reasons are a big part of that. So we talked with our friends at Ecotrends after we collected this information, and we brainstormed some ideas to improve traffic safety in Pulaski. So refuge islands was one that came up. We talked about cars driving through the median, which they're not supposed to be doing. I think we've all seen, a line of cars and somebody decides that they want to hit that left turn lane up ahead. So they're going to duck into the median and they're going to drive the whole block, probably pretty quick because they want to make the lane. So having refuge islands in the middle, concrete refuge islands in the middle, can cut that off and make it impossible for cars to drive through the median. Bump outs are basically extending the sidewalk at intersections, and so that would make it impossible for cars and trucks to drive through the parking lanes, which they also do frequently. Again, something that people should not be doing, but they do frequently. And bus stalls is another option that our friends at the CTA alerted us to, that would essentially allow buses to board and deboard at certain intersections and not have to weave in and out of traffic, which can cause its own havoc. Speaking of public transit, we feel like investing in frequent and reliable public transit is really going to make a difference. Part of the safety issue is that we can be very congested on Pulaski as well. Sometimes it's easy to go 70, 80, 100 miles an hour, and people do that for sure. But sometimes it's extremely congested, especially around our schools and our business districts. And a lot of times, if people are sitting in traffic, they will look for any opportunity to zip through and avoid some of that at a high rate of speed. And the more people who feel like they can and take public transportation on trips, especially short trips within the neighborhood, the fewer cars we have on the street, the better experience it is for everybody, people who are walking, biking, and driving, because they wouldn't be stuck in such heinous traffic. What about enforcement? So obviously we have traffic laws, and we ought to be enforcing those. We have one speed camera on the stretch of Pulaski. It's right across the street here. And if you drove on Pulaski, you may have gotten ticketed by it. I have gotten ticketed by it. And I can say it's effective, right? People slow down during that stretch of Pulaski between Archer and 51st. So people have brought up red light cameras and speed cameras as an option. Another thing that we've noticed, unfortunately, is as soon as people get out of range of the speed camera, they speed right back up. And sometimes they speed up considerably. So over on the right, you see this is a heat map of crashes along Pulaski, south of 51st Street. And you can see it's hot everywhere, right? There's plenty of crashes throughout this entire stretch. But the hottest area is immediately south of that speed camera on Pulaski. So we see that, once that's done, people do speed up. And if you've driven on the street, you know that that is the case. So if we do put in new red light or speed cameras, if the community feels like that is something that we want, we feel like we should also monitor those to see how are they performing. And when I say how are they performing, are they issuing less tickets year over year? Because if they're issuing more tickets year over year, then they're not addressing the speeding problem. So we should keep an eye on that for any new enforcement infrastructure that comes through. Okay. I'm skipping ahead. We're getting the preview. Okay, so long term. All right. So what we talk about in terms of refuge islands, in terms of bump outs, these are things that can go in the short term, and I know CDOT has plans to make some infrastructure improvements in the short term. So what about the long term? We have ample space in the median on Pulaski. As I mentioned, we have one permanent refuge island currently. It's a small one at 60th Street. But if you look in other areas of the city, we have these tree planters in the median. This is on 79th Street, just east of Pulaski. And we know that the southwest side is heavily industrial. It doesn't have as much tree coverage as other areas of the city. We have a fair amount of pollution. We could use the carbon sink. We could use the shade. We could use the beautification. So tree planters in the middle would, kill two birds with one stone, and we would have, a barrier for people who ought not be driving in the median, and we also achieve other things as well. We can also think about bus rapid transit and what that's going to look like on Pulaski. So bus rapid transit, if you're not familiar, is basically akin to an L line. It's allowing a bus to function like a train by having its own dedicated lane, by timing traffic lights, so when a bus is coming, they always have the green, by having boarding stations spaced further than one block apart, so only at major intersections. And it would function as quickly as the Orange Line would connect multiple train stations and train lines. Exists in many places in the world outside of the United States. And you might think that's far-fetched, that'll never happen. But it kind of is already. Every single alderman along Western, except for one, so that's 17 aldermen across the city, sent a letter asking for a study of what bus rapid transit would look like on Western Avenue. And if we're thinking about it on Western Avenue, maybe we should think about it on Pulaski as well. So that is... So in summary, how should we approach traffic safety? We feel like we should acknowledge the problem. It's a serious problem. It's been going on for years. It's been getting worse in recent years. We should listen to the community. Any changes that happen should be based on what community members are saying. We are the people who live closest to Pulaski, deal with it every day, so we have the best perspective on it. We should rely on the expertise of people who think about engineering and urban planning and transit safety issues deeply to help implement what the community is asking for in an effective way. We should improve infrastructure through immediate means like refuge islands and bump outs. We should embrace a long-term vision that includes more ambitious projects. Pulaski did not occur in nature, so we built it to be this way. If we want it to be different, if that's not working for us, we can change things. And we have, I think, the right to do that. And then I think we should measure our effectiveness. So we've offered some suggestions here that have come from the community, that have come from people who do transit advocacy and engineering. We think these are well-founded, but whatever we put in, we feel like we should come back in a year, 2 years, and we should see, did the number of crashes go down? Did the number of fatalities go down? Are people, paying less in terms of damages? So this is what we should measure ourselves on, and if it's working, we should do more of that. And if it's not working, we should try something else. So with that, we're going to hear a little bit from our esteemed panel. I've got a few questions, and I know that you all have questions too. You've been patiently waiting and listening to me. So I'm just going to have one question for each, and then we're going to pass a mic around so people can ask their questions as well. Okay. So, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming as well, for joining us. I think you all bring really valuable perspective to this. So the first question I have is for Alderwoman Gutierrez. We are here at Curie High School, which is part of the 14th Ward, and lots of students, teachers, and families use Pulaski every day to get to school. Thousands of students, teachers, and families. What would safety improvements to Pulaski mean for the Curie community specifically?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank Southwest Collective for the invitation and also for the work that you guys have been put in. Not only walking, but also getting all those surveys around and always being a voice in this community. What would it mean for Curie as a whole? I think it would be the same thing as for the whole families, right? And neighbors here in Archer Heights, but especially parents that had to go to work and don't have the blessing to come and drop off their kids to school. It would mean for them to go to work, not worrying if their kids are going to make it or not to school, right? Being able for them to walk or bike. So what we need to continue to do is provide those improvements so students could come to school safely. But also, not only for Curie students, but as you all know, 40th from I-55 all the way to 51st is a 14th ward. Then it goes to the 23rd. Then it goes a little bit with 13. And then I think 18 with Curtis as well. So that's what we need for Curie families to be able to be okay by their kids walking and not worrying about their safety.
Thank you for that. So the next question I have is for Jacob at CDOT. So CDOT's been active on this, and you've made some safety improvements on Pulaski in recent months, and I understand that more are coming soon. What do you have coming up in terms of safety improvements?
Yeah, first off, thank you to Southwest Collective and for all of you to attending this meeting. So what we've done so far in Pulaski, we've kind of been working at what we can implement the quickest, because obviously the priority is to get safety on Pulaski quicker. So we started with striping out parking lane lines, improving crosswalk visibility, refreshing all the striping on the corridor. I know that may seem like a huge improvement, but what it does is it visually narrows the road. It makes drivers more aware of where there are crossings, where they should be driving, where they shouldn't be driving. It includes in the median, refreshing the medians is critical. Next, what we've already started to work on, and we have plans to continue, is what we call rapid deployment improvements. Those include striping, but it also includes bollards and different kind of flexible delineators that we bolt into the concrete. Those are the next kind of phase that we've started in a few locations. We have quite a few intersections identified for later this fall. Those are quickest to implement. We don't need to pour concrete. We don't need special approvals from IDOT for geometric reasons. So those are kind of our next phase of let's get things that are a little more robust, make it a little more visually stunning to know where you should be driving, where you shouldn't be driving, added protection at crossings. And included in those locations are some methods that we're piloting that we've never done in the city before, which includes putting some of those bollards and different raised infrastructure in the medians so we can deter drivers from driving in the median. So like I said, it's a pilot, we've never done it before, but we're hoping to kind of see how that works to deter drivers from the medians. And then upcoming beyond the kind of rapid deployment, next year we're hoping to install concrete and raised curb type improvements. That's what we're talking about, bump outs and refuge islands and bus bulbs. Starting in the locations where we soon will have the rapid deployment, it's kind of like our first test. Is this a place that we want to put that raised concrete? It's obviously much more expensive. It will require IDOT approvals. There's a little bit more of a lead time on those kind of locations. And we also want to make sure that we got all the right locations. So if there are intersections that we did not do any of the rapid deployment at, but we've noticed that there's still concern at those locations, it's kind of an iterative process that we have an opportunity to then put the concrete type improvements at those locations.
All right, thank you for that. Good to know that those are coming up, and I know you've probably seen some of these go up already. I know 43rd in Pulaski had some infrastructure that's gone in, 65th in Pulaski, and 59th in Pulaski has one as well. And more are on the way, and hopefully some concrete infrastructure on the way as well. So, Alex, talk about the active transportation alliance. Active transportation is in your name. You promote walking, biking, public transportation. We've talked about a lot of people on the Southwest side would like to use these modes of transportation more frequently. What are some benefits to getting out of our cars, and how can we encourage more of them?
Thank everyone for coming out. Thank you to Southwest Collective for inviting us to speak about a little bit of what we worked on with the survey and the walk audit. So one of the good benefits of getting people to do some of the trips outside of cars is one, you get to reduce the car traffic in the actual Pulaski Road, and two, you can also encourage other people to use other modes of transportation like walking, biking, or taking transit a little bit more. Kind of mixed up the way the street kind of feels. For people who probably walk a little bit of Pulaski right now, they probably feel alone, or probably only people walking for a good stretch of the street. We experienced that when we did the walk out or also with LA Chicago, we did a walk around to the area outside of the Pulaski Orange Station. It's also just looking at the amenities of what's around. If people want to walk to spaces, we actually walk a good distance to get to maybe a restaurant. The proximity to a lot of things outside of the DTA station was auto parts, so it's like people aren't going to be walking to this. So how do we encourage other businesses, small businesses, to come to the area and kind of create that footprint for people to be able to walk and bike more frequently? And even just the station in itself of the Orange Line, it's not very inviting for people to walk to. So it's just kind of creating spaces for people to be able to walk safely to. And even if someone tries to bike to here to Curie, it's not really the safest thing, and hard to leave enough space when you're trying to just get on the road.
Yeah, thank you for that. I rode my bike to the Orange Line station to get here. So I rode down Pulaski for a minute and Archer for a minute. It's not my favorite thing to do. Try not to get out whenever I can avoid it. So we have had our say, right? This is a community meeting, so we are going to have somebody passing the mic, and he is right back there. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand, and we will get to you.
Thank you for having us. I have a post-COVID to COVID at this point right now. I'm wondering why it took so long. Why is it Cook County on the board right now? The state transportation not here? Community police not here? Because it's just not an issue. And also, you should have had J.B. Hunters on here. They have access to transportation for them to avoid the trucks, 47th Street, to use the side street. They have interest there. All that issues is concerning for us, as also a community. I've seen it get worse and worse in the last 10, 15 years. But I'm wondering, why is it the state senator's not here as well? Cook County is well not here. Because we need more transportation, more openings on I-55 to open these corridors for us to transportation in and out. And also, there should be a ban on trucking, certain hours. I've seen it in other communities happen, but they don't allow trucking to run at certain hours so transportation can go faster in and out and help the communities for certain hours. I see it in the suburbs. They do changes in a heartbeat. Why are we back asking for certain changes to be done and not being? I don't see anything happening. In the morning, when I leave at 4:30 in the morning, 5, I'm blasting. People are taking the strip malls before imported on the driveway. They're not taking the street. They're taking the strip mall, driving straight across. Where I'm going northbound, going around southbound on I-55. People, I'm on the lane to turn. One lane, I got cars on the other lane. So they're going straight northbound. They're turning with us. There's one entrance going out to I-55. Now there's 2 cars going in. One entrance going in. They're cutting in. I want to know what you guys are going to do for. I got to do that. Then coming home on I-55, you gotta do not turn on red. Traffic build up on I-55. You guys are supposed to help us. I don't see any changes. I want changes. I mean, I'm not here to scold you guys, but you guys have a job to do for this community. Curie High School. You should be cut into the sidewalk. Where cars come in and drop off the students. There's plenty of room there. I see it in the suburbs. They do that. State senators give them the money to do that. We don't have that here. How come? They got better schools out there. No, we have better schools. But I don't see any progress with aldermen or anything else coming to state senators to give this information. You want changes? Start with you guys, not from us. We're asking for the community to change. You guys want us to walk on? Start planting more trees. I asked for my alderman to change stuff too. Those trucks that you guys open up on Western, the garbage dump, increase my traffic flow on 47th Street. Not by 20%, by 40%. Damaging my roads. I feel the bumps on the road. I live close by on 47th Street. My house got cracks from this foundation. It's not from this. But you guys are even doing anything about this because what? You're not fixing the roads. All that has an impact on the community. And then we get hit with tax raises. See, it goes all the way around. It just doesn't start with us. It goes all the way around. We need changes, but we also need you guys to step up a little more.
Yes, I got elected a year ago, and since day one, I've been active and proactive in all of these. As we said, we hosted the first ever meeting about this issue in the 14th Ward, and since then, we've been, even before the meeting, we've been working with all the different elected officials in all the different levels of government, but also with the city departments, right, which we have jurisdiction over. And that's been a work in progress, and I totally understand your frustration, but we are working on it, and we have the commitment from our state senator and our state senator Cervantes, which is in my ward, as well as State Representative Aaron Ortiz, that they're going to look for the funding for long-term solutions, right?
I understand that you're looking for funding, but
Sure.
I don't want no more red light cameras in the area. They don't help. I'd rather see, if you put red light cameras in there, I'd rather see that money go back into the community instead of into your pockets. Because if those red lights give revenue for that intersection, for a red light or speeding, I'd rather be improvements, that money going to the community, not into the city budget.
Yeah, we're talking about cement, right? Refugee avenues and other things that are coming permanently. We're not talking about cameras right now. But we do understand your frustration, and we're working with all the levels of government. And as we said, some of those improvements are coming in the upcoming weeks. We have the funding, we have the materials and the manpower to put that up in the next upcoming weeks, weather permitting. So why is it temporary? Because we're going to check and see if they do work, whatever is implemented right now. And that's why we're not putting concrete or nothing, so that way we can move and look for something alternatives. But what I can tell you is, as I said, it's going to be improvements all along Pulaski, but also we need to reiterate that we also need to talk to our neighbors and to our kids, right? To follow the rules, not to speed. That's what we're having. So I think we also need to listen to other questions, but also there's an ordinance that is being put up by my colleague Las Para, where he's introducing to lower the speed limits in the whole city of Chicago, right? So we're working on legislation that will help us alleviate these issues. We're working on it. I totally understand you and your frustration. That's why we're here. And we need to continue to work the other departments. As you know, on the meetings that I put up, other departments were present. This is a community meeting put up by a community group, which we thank them for all the work they've been doing. But they're not alone. We're working together. So it's not that only in last meeting that we're going to host. It's a work in progress, and I totally understand it has not been done in years, but we're here with elected officials that care, that are here to work for you and with you to find the solutions. And we're not going to stop here.
Thank you.
Okay?
But next time I'd like to see Cook County is all involved in this process as well.
Of course, we also have a commitment with Cook County Commissioner Amanaya, that she also serves in this community, as well as some other elected officials. Also, one person from her staff is here. I also want to say that District Director from Congressman Garcia is here as well, Erika Calderon. So we have the support for the first time, sir. All the levels of government are working together. So we are committed, and we're working towards having solutions and bring changes to our community. So we're in a good spot right now.
Okay, who else has a question?
Thank you very much. I live over here on 59th and Pulaski. Recently bought the house there, and I thought I made a mistake because I see all the speeding that's going on. But have you guys considered, and you spoke a little bit about bike trails, right, or biking to different places. Over there on the north side of Chicago Avenue, by, I want to say, what is it, Ashland Avenue? There's some bike paths, and that works out very well. I've been in that community over there, and traffic especially speeding traffic, has been reduced dramatically. Have you guys thought about that? Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your question. Yes, so bike lanes and bike infrastructure comes hand in hand with a lot of the improvements that we've been looking at in the corridor. A lot of the major improvements we're looking at right now is focusing on reducing the speeding first and pedestrian safety, but as those the rapid deployment improvements and then moving on to the concrete improvements come into the corridor, it doesn't preclude us from future bike infrastructure. It's just we're kind of prioritizing the safety first, and that's kind of why we want to get those improvements out there. And then as we reflect and move forward as an iterative process, we get to look back and say, okay, those improvements are working. What else can we do to make this corridor better, to reduce speeding, to add multimodal options like cycling, increasing the transit attractiveness with bus vaults and things like that. So yes, that's definitely on our radar. The first wave of improvements and what the concrete improvements will be next year, that's a little bit more on vehicular, speed reduction and pedestrian safety, just because that feels like that's the most imminent. But yeah, that absolutely is being considered.
I want to mention something real quick. So biking is near and dear to my heart. I do it pretty much every day and have since I was a kid in the city. We don't necessarily advocate for bike lanes on Pulaski, but I will note that CDOT has some plans coming up for Archer, Brighton Park specifically, and also for Kedzie that include protected bike lanes and some other safety improvements. And there's a group called Chicago Bike Group Now that advocates for a connected citywide network of bike lanes, because one of the most frustrating parts is when you have a protected bike lane somewhere and then all of a sudden you run into what's essentially a highway, and that doesn't really work for anybody. So we can maybe put some infrastructure on other north-south streets like Wanda or Costner to make it more bike-friendly. Those are the places where I bike if I'm going north-south in that area. But Archer is somewhere where we do have protected bike lanes coming to the southwest side in the near future for the first time ever. So that's an exciting development.
Hi, I was just wondering, has traffic light timing been considered as part of the assessment here? Just from the standpoint of driving, and also bringing up one of our neighbors' comments about JB Hunt. So over the years, JB Hunt has redirected their traffic off of Archer Avenue and goes underneath the railroad tracks at Archer 47. And I know they use more of a back road to get to the Stevenson. But the problem is when you're going northbound on the Stevenson, you're taking maybe 2 to 3 lanes of traffic, and it's going down to 2. And then it's really 1 because there's so much traffic backed up going southbound onto the Stevenson. You have, with everybody coming up on the curve, you have 3 lanes of traffic trying to get into the one right-hand lane, be able to go straight over the bridge into Little Village, or be able to go on the Stevenson in the north. So you have traffic coming in from the Dunkin' Donuts there at 41st, right? And then the little secret shortcut behind Burger King, if you want to zip up that way. And that's another huge volume of trucks that are all coming in at the same time. And if they don't make the light, they're blocking the intersection. And that's where I find the reason everybody's speeding up the street to go there is just to get this gridlock of traffic that's there during rush hour.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for your question. So, kind of as part of this iterative process where we're implementing different improvements to keep drivers from kind of erratically driving fast, that's going to change the nature of the roadway. And so as traffic sticks to the speed limits that are intended for the corridor, and as these lanes that aren't intended for travel, such as parking lanes, median, are no longer being used, we then have an opportunity to look back and go, okay, now that the capacity is being administered correctly, the lanes are being used as they're supposed to be, what do the signals look like? Where are their pinch points? Where is their backup? So that's kind of that's part of what we will review as these improvements come in on the corridor, because it's hard for us to say now where drivers are using extra lanes. There's all different types of behavior that really doesn't bode well for how we want to change the signal timings, because right now the language isn't what we want it to be. So.
Good afternoon. My name is Lilia Guevara, and I am a mother of a student at Acero Garcia High School, which is in Kilder in 47. We have been working for the past 3 years and a half trying to bring education for parents and students about traffic safety. And the school has been very hesitant about cooperating with the parents. So we understand as parents that these children need to be educated in traffic safety. And we believe the school is the first and primary source for us to help us to teach them those guidelines. Also, there is a lot of immigrant population coming into the area who do not know anything about traffic safety. So when we ask the staff and the principals about helping us getting in contact with these parents and sharing these practices that we created, and then we share with them. and then it has been a lot of issues trying to cooperate with us. So I wonder, I appreciate that gentleman saying, well, why the police is not here? Like, why is it that there's no police enforcement in regards like that speeding? That is reckless a lot of times. And also, we don't know who to reach out to, the city, to the state. How can we get the school principals cooperate with the parents?
Something that we've been working on with Active Trans is safe routes to school, so that's kind of the mission of kind of what you're getting at with helping parents, students get to school safely. It's been pretty concerning, especially with all the traffic that happens during drop-offs and pickup times for people who are pretty much driving their kids morning and day, so that creates one, a lot of traffic, but also two, it creates a lot of safety for people who are walking or biking to schools. So that's one thing that we encourage kind of parents to work with the schools, work with elected officials, work with the Department of Transportation to kind of figure out what are the best tools that can be used to help out, whether that's bump outs, like one of the things that we mentioned here is just how do we create safer infrastructure for kids to walk to school safely. So that's very important, especially when a lot of kids are, especially under 18, are not driving, so they're primarily walking or biking to school. So that's the demographic that we should be making sure we be safe, especially when they get to and from school.
Hello. I have a traffic light suggestion on 61st in Pulaski. And for the kids from go to Harvard High School, their field is across 60th and Carlo. So, and also my father, he takes public transportation, and he almost got hit on Friday the 13th. And hopefully, you guys help us.
Yeah, thank you. We've noted from the community response we've got on locations where there are concerns. I know 61st has come up before, but this is why we like to engage the community to figure out where are those problem areas we want to look at most of all.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Knopf. I'm one of the newly elected 8th District Police Councilmen here in the 8th District. I had the ability to attend the 822's meeting a couple weeks ago regarding this exact issue. The young lady over there asking about police enforcement. We've been working diligently with Commander Strange on this issue as well. Recently, because of the DNC and all the summer events that are going on downtown, a lot of the police personnel have been reallocated to those events and for the safety of the DNC. Currently, the 8th District has 259 officers. That's down almost probably 20% from last year. So with the limited manpower, you guys are getting less and less enforcement of simple traffic services, such as school enforcement, crossing of the kids, things along that line. Commander did inform me that now that the DNC is over and summer is winding down and all these events are coming to an end, they are getting their manpower back in the districts, not only here, but in 7, 6, and 10, some of the surrounding police districts. And they are resuming traffic missions up and down Pulaski Avenue. When we had a meeting with the gentleman up there from CDOT at 822, they had just 4 traffic missions that week alone. So we asked that Commander continue working on those traffic missions up and down Pulaski Avenue. We do feel that enforcement is the key to slowing these guys down. I know that JLU and all of Suarez are working feverishly to address some of the infrastructure stuff. But again, it is a process. I know the gentleman there who works in Aurora is frustrated with all the stuff going up and down Pulaski. But it's a whole process, and we started working on this 4 years ago to see that the temporary solutions are starting to come in. Is a great thing with the ballards and everything. But keep calling the police. They are doing traffic missions, attend your CAPS meetings. We have a district council meeting at West Lawn on Thursday if you guys like to attend. But know that the police are out there, but resources are very, very limited right now until we can recruit and get more police officers here in the city of Chicago. Thank you guys.
I think buzzers are red and the green light is going. So there's always a blockage right there. Thank you.
I think you have documented that.
Hi, I live on 59 Pulaski. First of all, I want to thank you guys because my life has changed a lot since you guys put those, what do you call them, pylons or whatever? Because it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. At 2:30 in the morning is when it usually starts. The donuts and stuff. And it's when you live there, and you live in fear. You live in fear that somebody's going to die out there. That somebody's going to hit your house if your house is close enough to the intersection. You just, living like that, that's no way to live. I've been in my house for 31 years, and this is the first year I'm on the move. Because I've had enough. I don't want to be in fear of walking out of my house if something's going to hit me. My son's car got smashed up twice, parked in front of the house. Because of this stuff. One time the insurance covered it, the second time he had to cover it himself. You know, this is ridiculous. This is no way to live. So I want to thank you though for putting in what you call the pylons, whatever, because the donuts have finally stopped. Because that is scary. It's like the movie The Purge when those things happen. They come from everywhere. You can witness what's happening on one of those intersections as it's happening. It's frightening. It's frightening. I'm living through this weekend as a nightmare. If anybody lives around Pulaski, it was a nightmare for all of us this weekend. Because they were everywhere. And they were going down 59th Street, Pulaski, that's where I see the most. You know, I don't see a way to end it. And I think it's sad. I hope you guys come up with ideas. The pylons are great, because at least there's no donuts anymore. But I don't know how you stop these people from driving like idiots. How do you get these people buy mufflers for their cars? I don't know. How do you do this? I don't think there's an answer for it, and I think it's a very sad commentary on society in general. But one question I do have, where are the other aldermen? Where's Alderman Quinn? Where's her name, Tavares, from the 13th and 23rd Ward? Why are they not sitting here? Did you guys reach out to them, or?
Yeah, so I can answer that. And thank you for coming in. I think, one thing that I really hate to hear is somebody who's lived in the community for 30 plus years saying that they feel like, they want to move that.
I love my house. I love this vicinity. I love everything about it. Well, why, as soon as the sun goes down, you're afraid to walk out of your house, or God forbid you to walk out to Pulaski.
Yeah.
Because as soon as the sun goes down, that's when it begins, and it peaks from around midnight to about 3 in the morning. That's the peak of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear that. In terms of the other aldermen, and I know that we've had questions about other levels of government as well. The first question that we got. So we did reach out to, and we've had conversations with the aldermen, with the state senators. There are 2 in the area, with the state representatives. There are 2 in the area, with the Cook County Commissioner in the area. It's great to see police district representation here tonight. We have various city departments that have been engaged. We have IDOT here tonight, and I think it'd be great to hear from them as well, in addition to CDOT. So for the aldermen specifically, they both did send people to some of the walks that we did in West Lawn. So Alderman Tavares sent one of her staff people to the walks that we did in West Elston and West Lawn, and Alderman Quinn sent somebody to one of the walks that we did in West Lawn as well. And that was a positive experience. They were talking with constituents. They've been interested in sort of the feedback that we've been getting from the survey and all of that, and I do hope that that's going to shape their advocacy on the issue. I know they're aware of it, and I know they've been working with with Alderwoman Gutierrez to try to get something done. I'll mention Alderman Quinn is on the Pedestrian and Traffic Safety Committee in the City Council, so he can play an especially powerful role in that committee. to get something done on this issue. But we've been in conversation with all of them. So.
I'm glad to hear that, I was concerned about that. Good luck to you guys. I don't have any answers for you right there. And thank you for what you've done so far, because it has really, really helped. Those pilots really help. So thank you.
All right, we've got a question in the middle there.
Well, I have some comments and questions. First of all, I heard this gentleman here about Curie High School with all the parents dropping off their kids on Archer and on Pulaski. It creates a traffic problem because they stop over there and then the parents are probably one of the worst offenders because then they come across Archer to turn around and do U-turn on Archer. That's creating problems. They should have a spot just for the parents to drop off these kids. Second of all, on 43rd and Pulaski, they have a bump out. They have a bus lane, it's painted red, it says bus only. Cars go through there all the time, and then they're cutting in front of all the cars on Pulaski by 43rd, going to 42nd northbound. Third of all, I don't know what you're going to do about these people who go through red lights on Pulaski, right here by Curie High School, there's a red light by the tracks. Cars go through that red light all the time. I don't know what could be done about it, but they're always going through it. Okay, now one of my questions is, on these crashes that you mentioned, the 4,000 crashes, how many of these drivers were unlicensed and uninsured? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that, but one thing that I can say from the data that I've looked at just from 2023 to 2024 in April, there's been about over 1,500 crashes. So you're getting pretty much, just from looking at the data from 4 years ago, that you're pretty much averaging about 1,000 crashes per year just on this stretch from 40th to 71st. So it's crazy. So it's one way to kind of look at it is through the infrastructure improvements. Maybe the media can help out with preventing some of those U-turns. But I do agree with creating designated drop-off spots so that way you're not creating traffic backing up. But that's the issue for a lot of schools across the city. That we have been kind of keeping an eye on and would like to see improvements made sure in schools, especially where the infrastructure is not there.
Yeah, it's not just Curie, it's a lot of the schools, all the parents are doing that. But I would just like to know about the uninsured drivers or unlicensed drivers because they should be off the roads then. And that would solve some of the problem.
Yeah, that's something that's not visible in data, so we can't tell you.
And then another thing you're saying to have people walk more, bike more. You know, I have people that I know from work, they stopped taking the CTA, the buses and the train because of the crime on the CTA. So they're all drivers, and that's adding extra cars to the roads because of all the crime. So that's a problem too. You gotta reduce the crime on the CTA, the buses and the trains. And then my other question is, which I'm not really sure about, is what are the bus holes? I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, so bus bulbs are a newer improvement we've implemented in different parts of the city. So like we were talking about curb extensions where it brings out the kind of the crosswalk ramp. A bus bulb is kind of an extension of that. So what the bus gets to do is rather than pull off into the curb lane outside of the lanes of traffic, they can stay maintained in the travel lane, stop where this bump out extending the whole length of the bus is. It's easier for riders with disabilities and different people to board the buses, and it also allows the bus to not have to leave lanes of traffic, which sometimes that leave maneuver causes drivers to drive erratically. It's hard for the buses to get through. And like those types of improvements also encourage quicker lead times on buses, so it increases the desirability of people to ride buses. So that's kind of, the bus bulb is just an extension of the curb extension. Sorry, I used extension twice, but basically just to allow the bus to not have to pull off the road to pick people up.
One other thing I want to say, sorry. I think you should try those ballards because I think they are helping a lot. And the islands that you're talking about, those refuges, I think that's going to help because you have so many cars going down the middle of Pulaski and they're going on the left turn lane and cutting in front of everybody. So I think that should help somewhat with those. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I know we will take time to get to a whole bunch of additional questions, but I want to make sure that we can get to our friends from IDOT who came out today from the Illinois Department of Transportation, because I know they are time limited in that respect. So if you all have something that you'd like to add, really important. And then we'll get to more questions.
I'm with the Illinois Department of Transportation. Good evening. And we wanted to make sure that, we did get on here so we can let you know that, yes, we are working with CDOT. CDOT works with us quite closely in a lot of things. We work with them, quite a bit of collaboration, always going on all the time. We have a very successful history with them on that collaboration. And certainly if there's anything that requires IDOT's attention, we are involved, we will be involved. And we are looking ahead for anything that you're sending to us. We'll keep an eye out for that, get it in the queue right away. So we'll make sure we're playing our part where we have to, and appreciate being invited to.
All right, thank you. So, more questions?
So also I wanted to mention in the center line, there's going to be some center line hardening. So it's also going to be kind of like speed humps, like those rubber ones that will be placed on alleys. So they'll be also placed down the center. Yeah, so people won't be able to rush in again. Yes, so there'll be areas from, for example, Aldi or Target where cars need to, again, get into the intersection, but in places where there's no need for cars to get into Pulaski again, there'll be those kind of rubber speed humps all the way, so people won't be rushing on that center line.
Hey, good afternoon. I live in the West Elton neighborhood, and I appreciate everything you're doing today to try and improve safety and reduce speeding. But I wanted to see if your long-term solution was permanent, and if there were any, ideas or potential of revisiting it. Because in my personal opinion, those islands are sort of a waste of space and doesn't really encourage walking or biking anymore. One of the example pictures you showed on 79 with the islands, the sidewalk is still small, and when you have a tree in place, it takes up a lot of it, so it doesn't encourage people to want to walk or bike on the sidewalk. It does feel safer when there's cars parked, but outside of business hours, that's essentially a third lane. So I wanted to know if there's any potential to extend the sidewalks, include a bike lane on there, or add some greenery there instead of just taking up the middle lane and making it inaccessible to anybody. Because it looks nice, but in reality, it doesn't do anything for the walking traffic or biking traffic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So, like we were talking about, all this rapid deployment, bollards and the rubberized speed humps and the things we call quick curb and the paint post bump out. So the reason that we need to implement those quickly is because they aren't fixed and it's not concrete that we're pouring there. But the hope is that if we see those as effective deterrents for speeding, for using the curbside lane, for driving, different things like that, then that's what we want to make the longer term solution with concrete improvements. And I know a problem with curbside parking is when those parking lanes aren't being utilized, people still try to speed in them. The objective for a lot of the corridor-wide improvements we do on roads like Pulaski would be to when we pour the concrete, make these curb extensions, they kind of they would be placed at ends of blocks, so then you actually can't drive through in that curb lane, even when there aren't vehicles there. It's still an obstruction. But then for the last part of your question, so long term, these concrete improvements that we're hoping to implement next summer. Those are the kind of improvements that we can still do relatively quickly without doing the entire road design change. The cross-section of the road doesn't change significantly. Down the road, we can definitely look into other types of more radical cross-section changes, but I think our biggest goal is what we can implement quickest, like I was saying earlier. So there's rapid deployments this fall. Spring will be when we're getting our IDOT approvals, and then the design will be completed on the more robust improvements, and then as those get poured in place and we get to kind of analyze and see how those are working, is then we can look to the future and do much broader changes to the corridor. But it's always going to be an iterative process because, we don't want to jump the gun and make a radical change that ultimately pushes the problem to something else. And so that's kind of why it's important for us to kind of phase.
Which also is planned to be repaved Pulaski in 2025, 2026. So that's why it's temporary. So that way, after the repaving of the whole stretch of Pulaski, so then we can pour that concrete and make some more changes.
Yeah, the repaving is an opportunity for us to do a lot of that concrete work because those are repaving projects are typically on a timeline. It's not because of a specific event or anything like that. It's just over time in the period. So when we have those larger changes is when we can implement the concrete type improvements simultaneously just to save money and time.
And if I could just add a quick comment to one thing about the walk audits that we heard is a lot of people were saying how narrow the sidewalks are. So it's something that we've constantly heard from neighbors who joined us for the walk audit. So it's something definitely that if we could get wider sidewalks, it would encourage more people to walk. Same thing with what you mentioned with side paths. So if we could get a side path that's not on the actual road, it could encourage more people to bike, because anybody who tries to currently bike on Pulaski kind of has to kind of be a brave soul to be able to do that.
Yeah, and one thing I'll mention is that there's a lot of space on Pulaski, right? So it's an incredibly wide street. If you've ever tried to cross on foot, you know that. So, there's a lot of things that people might like to see in terms of, space for vehicles, space for buses, space for bikes, space for trees. And there is limited space, it's not unlimited, but there's a lot of space to work with on Pulaski. So if we find a design that works for the community, we should pursue that. But we have a lot of room to work with. So, additional questions? Okay. Yeah. With some people with their hands up. I see you in the corner. Yes. So someone has their hand up who hasn't asked a question before. We should get to them. If you have asked a question before, we can get to you as well. But anybody who hasn't asked a question before, we'll make sure to get to you first.
How is the city about having the signs that say stop for pedestrians put up? Do you even consider those or no?
Are you talking about the in-road, the tiny placards? So
right.
we do install those in the city. The criteria to include those just for safety reasons are much smaller corridors. Large multi-lane corridors like this, the problem is, especially with truck traffic and even just with high vehicle traffic, is they get damaged because they're permanently in the road structure. So that's something that a corridor like Pulaski is not necessarily appropriate for, but with a lot of these rapid deployment improvements, we're also adding additional pedestrian signage on the curbside. And if we go to the concrete refuge islands, then we will have crossing signs in the refuge islands. Yeah. So the ones that are in the street, though, Pulaski is not the appropriate use for those, but there are other pedestrian signage in different ways to identify crossings for drivers to yield. So.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I'm a crossing guard on 68th and Pulaski, and that is horrible. I have to direct traffic that is going into the school, which is on 70 to go to Richards Middle School. And, I do kind of direct traffic so I don't get bombarded and all the kids are crossing. But I think they need more of the signs for pedestrians, and especially because of the island there. That island is so dirty. I already had emailed the alderman on September the 5th, and not till this day has it been cleaned.
Okay, thank you.
So, maybe that island can get one.
Yeah, no, that's,
Because even after I'm done at my shift at 4 o'clock, people want to cross, and I sit there and I watch. Cars do not stop, and that's sad for the people that live in that area.
Understood, yeah. So, we'll look into the signage at that crossing.
Thank you.
I think we have time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions, and then we can ask a wrap-up question for the panel. But
just super quick, given all the congestion we're talking about in the area over here in prior meetings with the Archer Heights Civic Association, so there's going to be an underpass at Archer before Cicero that they're going to be working on within the next year, and some of the early plans we've seen has been redirecting Archer traffic down 47. So I'm just wondering, is there still, is that still the planned route, and it's more of an FYI for the rest of our neighbors here that 47 might get a little bit busier?
Are you saying the construction-related traffic? I don't know the MOT, so maintenance of traffic and MOT is the phrase that we use. I don't know what the plans are for that project. I can look to it. My guess is if the signs are up, the construction is underway. That's likely what the routing will be for the temporary construction zone, but I don't know.
okay. Any other questions? We have time for 1 or 2.
Hello.
We'll get you next.
Thank you everyone for being here. I do have some just comments in general. Thank you IDOT for showing up. We really need your help on this one because as we know it's a state road, so we do need a lot of permission from the state coming down, and if we don't get you guys involved, we can't really move forward. I also want to thank the Alderwoman. She's been putting on these hall meetings, really listening to the people. So I appreciate that. I live on 61st and Pulaski, so I've seen a couple of changes from the highway to 71st and on Kedzie. There's been a lot of work on Kedzie as far as the plastic bump outs, but Kedzie is different from Pulaski. So we really need to take a look at what, it works on Kedzie because it's a smaller street, but Pulaski is quite too large. So I think one thing that I did want to bring up is, since Pulaski is a state road, we can look at it as an advantage, look at an opportunity, putting in bus-only lanes from 7 to 9 a.m. and in the afternoon 4 to 6. There's no paid parking, so the city's not losing out any money. CDOT did something similar on Jeffrey Boulevard on the east side, and I think that's a great opportunity to increase, bus usage and get people to where they're going. Widening the sidewalks, we talked about this before. There's definitely parts where you just feel so tight and cramped walking along the sidewalk. It's not really fun to go back and forth. I'm not a big fan of the plastic bump outs, like the ones that were installed in front of Quinn's office on 65th and Pulaski. They were installed less than a month ago, and it's already damaged and plastic missing. Like the crosswalk said, the cross guard said on the 60th and Pulaski, it's really dirty. There should be more signage, but it gets run over occasionally. So all the signs and posts that were on the pedestrian alley on 60th and Pulaski, they're all missing and gone now. Let's see. Bike lanes are definitely needed. I've been talking about both Tavares and Quinn about getting green bikeways on. You can do it on Lawndale. You can do it on 60th Street. Yeah, and there's just generally no traffic enforcement. I think I'd like to see that. People do drive on these bike lanes, on the parking lanes. They've striped it out now, but I still see that all the time. People trying to cut across, trying to get ahead in traffic. I don't know what we're going to do about truck traffic. And Apple did a study, and they did find that Stevenson is just the most traffic by trucks in all the city. It's like a really, really bad point. And then people aren't thinking this is actually affecting your physical health and your mental health as well. So I would love to, for us to take a look at it. I'm just really waiting on those curb bump outs that are going to help buses come in and do what they need to do. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. A couple comments. Like you said, Kedzie has some of these improvements, similar things. Well, Pulaski is a different roadway, and that's why we're implementing new things like the Alderman was speaking about, the median, and kind of modifying our approach to some of those rapid deployment type improvements. I know, those plastic bollards and stuff, they do get hit. Our hope is with the more holistic corridor-wide improvements that are coming this fall is the more that they're available on that corridor, the more the drivers just have to be aware of them and drive differently than they are now. When there's only a few locations that they have a higher tendency of getting hit. So our hope is as more get implemented, they become more visible, people are more aware of the type of driving behavior that they can no longer do. looking into what makes sense to have at citywide corridors that connect our entire bike network. And so just know that like this Pulaski effort is big and it's taking a lot of our attention, but we also are simultaneously looking at bike infrastructure in other parts of the city, or other parts of the neighborhood in this region. So that's always on our mind as well. It's just, there's multiple moving parts and every effort is getting addressed. So.
And then I could just add a quick comment about bus to what you were saying. There is a bus, it was mentioned there's a bus lane on 53rd, but it's only a short stretch, and there's constantly cars driving on it, so if you could get kind of long-term goals with either creating a lane that stretch a little bit longer, probably the whole stretch of Pulaski, and getting them enforced because people aren't driving into them or parking in them, that would be really great just to get people more incentivized to take public transit a little bit more. And also the recommendation of adding bus rapid transit on Pulaski would be kind of a big shift just to get your bus going faster and more people to possibly shift from possibly driving everywhere to getting them on bus to get to and from Pulaski.
All right. I know that the gentleman in the blue shirt up front has had his hand raised for a while, so if we can get to him as well. And maybe after that, we can do one more question and we'll wrap up with a bit.
I got one more question. You guys ever thought about advertising safety awareness? I mean, you got a new community come in. I mean, you know, all these migrants come in. I mean, they don't know the rules of the road, for one. I mean, it's good to be on television and radio about awareness, you know, pedestrian walking. It's one thing. Also, using the insurance companies to pay for this stuff. Since they're on, you know, like safety is their main product towards companies and towards us as well too. We got to wear a safety jacket, we do this and this and that, but let them put a bill on it because all these accidents, 4,000 accidents here, there's got to be some kind of safety advisement on television for us as well, to be on television and on radio or on internet or anything for them to start advertising their safety product. And the second one, is when you're doing Pulaski, are you also changing the light fixtures? Make transportation faster or easier for us for the jam control. Like ways, they have ways in there that tells us right off the bat there's a congested down thing. Are you inverting or into networks to help you guys as well too, to figure out all these congested areas, have a plan to get traffic off that area and onto other roads. And the last thing about, I want more trains to go past Midway up to the suburbs, because they use Pulaski as the main parallel to get on I-55. I mean, you gotta open up Central, put a bridge. There was funding for that. What happened to that funding to open up a bridge to alleviate that stress in Cicero and Pulaski?
Thank you for that. I am getting the signal to start wrapping it up, so I want to give people a chance to respond to what you just said.
Yeah, no, one thing you're talking about was with the traffic signals and capacity of intersections. I know that earlier there was a comment about the timing of the signals. So as we change the behavior on Pulaski and make it, we have drivers driving the way they're supposed to be doing on Pulaski. We will have the opportunity to look into where are those congestion spots, what's changing about driving behavior as these improvements are being implemented. So that's kind of part of our reflection on what the effectiveness of these safety measures is, can also then lead itself to capacity and congestion concerns as well. But we're leading with the safety and kind of reflecting on what that's doing to the corridor and the travel behaviors.
All right, so we are going to be good guests at Curie. We're going to start wrapping this up. So in terms of advertising, I want to say that I feel like to show some love for Friends of Active Trans, that the Bike the Drive event is a wonderful advertisement for pedestrian safety for anybody who's participated in it. It really is, I think, a transformational experience to be able to ride your bike on Lakeshore Drive. And they've been doing it for years, so you know, do that if you can. But I have a I have one question just to wrap things up. This is not the end of this, right? We want to continue talking. We want to continue to hear from you. We want to engage with you online. We want to, send us a message through any of our social media channels. Talk with us after the event is over. We are going to continue talking about Pulaski until we see safety improvements and permanent safety improvements put in place. But speaking of that, so final question for everybody. We've been talking a lot about specifics of what's happening now, what's happening this fall, what's happening next year. I want to know, what is your long-term vision for Pulaski? Where do you want to see us 10 years from now? And just go down the line.
As I mentioned, BRT is kind of one of the bus rapid transit, kind of one of the big things that we would like to see probably in 10 years. That could be a big transformation where we currently have 3 or 4 lanes on each side for Pulaski, so we could just maybe even just get one of those lanes out and use them for public transit, get more people to incentivize to public transit. That's one way to get them off. And once you get off your car, everybody's walking. You have to walk to where you're going to your destination, whether that's to the train station, the bus stop, school, restaurant, store. Everybody has to walk somewhere. So if you could get the sidewalks a little bit more extended, give people more space to want to walk a little bit more, that's a great thing. Tree planting is another great way to just make it more inviting for the street, because right now it's just pretty much concrete and people are next to you.
I think it would be amazing 10 years from now to have a safe road where people could walk, bike, and drive safely. Also, having more people use, as we said, public transportation. And with that said, also maybe having a bridge, right, in order for people to, from here, go to the CTA safer as well. So students also could, because I've seen a lot of students getting on the train back home, but also waiting the buses, crossing from Curie to the station. So a bridge will come really handy, and it's a great opportunity to be safer. But I think all the measures that we put on in 10 years need to give a good result, and that's what we envision.
Yeah, I'm going to parrot what everyone else has said, but the goal would be to have a Pulaski that's desirable for all road users, safe and desirable. So that's pedestrians, that's cyclists, that's transit users, passenger vehicles, and even trucks. We want to have a balance of all of those uses and make sure that one is not taking from another. And that's why the Pulaski improvements are huge, and this is a corridor we want to focus on. But then as we get broader into the neighborhood, we want to make sure that the changes we make on Pulaski aren't also impacting the adjacent roadways. That's why when we talk about bike networks and different things that are more holistic and are broader than just one corridor, we want to make sure that our changes are funneling the right users to the right types of equipment. And so Pulaski is a huge corridor. It's been in the city for a long time. There's lots of businesses, there's lots of neighborhoods, there's schools. So there's a lot of different people that need to use Pulaski on a daily basis. And the goal in 10 years would be that everyone can safely do that without having to change their desired mode of transportation.
All right. So we are going to wrap things up. I want to thank everybody on the panel. I want to thank Jacob from CDOT. I want to thank Alderman Gutierrez. I want to thank Alex from Active Trans. Personally, my vision for Pulaski 10 years from now is a street that is responsive to what the community wants. And I feel like events like this and initiatives to try to gather as much community feedback as we can are really crucial to make sure that Pulaski is serving people who live closest by, because a lot of our major arterial streets are designed